to run a test meeting to see how everything works and will look, although it can be slow and not display as nicely. Click on Test Meeting. If there's multiple people controlling, there'll be a message here. The president can go through to see. This is also a great way to see what the slides look like. Welcome to BNI online. Here's a slide for renaming. Here's a slide if a chapter wants to set up their own conventions. There's a slide that can come up randomly telling people to check their connections. The open categories slide can come in. In this section, the call to order and the script that's here. The president can check through that. All of the variables are filled in with the names and so on. The disclaimer about recording or not recording and driving is also there. The president needs to be able to scroll through to see where exactly to be. My name is, I'm the president, goes through the script there. Introducing the visitors, visiting today, the names of the visitors and who they're invited, and their names appear on the slide. Then how they choose to display the leadership team. Some chapters want to display them all on one slide. However, with BNI+, it can also be done various ways, such as the LET on one slide or even on individual slides, because in this script, each one is introduced separately. Such as slide for the membership committee. And the president does need to scroll through this to make sure that everything is on track. And there's also two ways to do the introduction. The script is set up so that each member of the leadership team introduces themselves and states their own role, although they would need to know that information, or the president can read it or ad lib or reshape it to say, for example, the vice president has two principal responsibilities, or the vice president could read that part off. And as we get to each section, the members of the membership committee are there. Each member of the membership committee could read off or state what their role is. Although only the president has access to the script, they would have to know that each member would need to know their role in advance, but if they're doing the same thing week after week for a year, I think they'll get it memorized. Some chapters have more than 4 people in the membership committee. Each one gets introduced, and again, the president follows the script. The secretary, treasurer, visitor, host, and when introducing the visitor host, there's also the visitor host coordinator and the visitor hosts themselves. There's a separate slide if there's a smaller number or a large number of visitor hosts. Education coordinator, communications coordinator, again following through the script. And the mentoring team, the member mentors also appear or should be appearing here. And the director, consultant, or ambassador should also be appearing here. Sometimes in this test, not everything appears. Focus core value of the week. A member can be selected at random. Member could be cold called or could know in advance. Pick a member and the slide appears. Or once the member states the core value, then that core value can be pulled up there. Purpose and overview of BNI. There are 11 different paragraphs that the president can go through and read. There's some BC stats. There's also the world map. Wait for that to load. And then there's this number 2, show BNI world map. And these are the stats that are provided by BNI itself. Networking education. The education coordinator would appear here. We've got a lag waiting for it to load. If there's another member doing the education moment, then that member can be clicked on and then the slide will appear. They also have the option to upload a PowerPoint or a document and then be able to control that. We're announcing the network leaders. There's notes there that for the president, that's always about recognition. There is selecting if one has been chosen. Some aspect of this can still be a little bit buggy and might all be solved by then. So if we're doing the power of one, and when we set the networking leaders, we've got, say, the top one-to-one members, the top CEUs, and so on. And these would all be in here. Now, if the chapter is meeting online, then the business card box, or if they're meeting in person, then the business card box would appear. There would be a QR code here because each chapter has a QR code, but this one has just been set up for a test, so there's no QR code. The welcoming new and renewing members. In order to stick to the agenda and to give each member some personal attention, we can either do it by having both new and renewing members appear, which may not be the best, or we can select one. Now, because we've designated them as new or renewing, this one is select one new member. The president would need to know, well, who is the new member? Click the new member, and then can go through and do the code of ethics with the new member. And then the president can go through and select the one renewing member. So again, the president has to know who is who. And then there's also notes in here that bring them to the front of the room, congratulate them, whether they're new or renewing, bring up their sponsor if you can for a new member, ask the renewing member why they chose to renew. The passport graduation, BNI+ as it is now, does not support the passport program, which we do in BC because the founders of the passport program are the executive directors for BC. And the way we do it is we've still got an introduction to the passport. And again, there's the ability to pick any member, which means the president would have to know from the mentor coordinator who is graduating to be able to select that member to appear in order to do the passport and the passport graduation. After that, welcoming the visitors. There's a few ways they can be introduced. And that's going to depend on what the chapter tends to do now. There could be the one slide where we call upon each one individually. There is also, again, a slide where they present individually, or each visitor could be introduced one at a time with their own slide, either where they are just up and then they introduce themselves, or where they have the questions, the prompts. So their information is up there, who invited them is there, and they've still got the prompts for their questions. So up to the chapter, there's a timer there. There's also a progress bar as a timer. The different ways that the visitors can be presented. After the visitors come the member weekly presentations. Those can be done. There's also a script introducing them. And there's also a part where the president states we will go in either alphabetical order or random order. So watch for your name. And if you're going in random order, it's a good idea to start with the feature presenter. Even if you're going in alphabetical order, you could start with the feature presenter. If you're going alphabetically, then you'd pick one, and then the alphabet would continue from there. And to go through these, there's a timer on the screen that counts down. Should be counting down. Yeah, finally. And the president just needs to click through each one as each member speaks and as the timer counts down. Now, if we discover at some point that a member is absent, then the check can be done. Go from the green to the red, from the check mark to the X, and that would hide that member's slide. There's also alphabetical with a progress bar instead of a countdown. There's also selecting a member at random, and then we can either start with or end with a particular member. We tend to go with whoever the featured speaker is going to be, and then start with that member. And again, the president just has to click through this as each member speaks and presents. And it lets the president know who is up and who is next. If somebody is forgotten or missed, or there has to be a change, we can jump there. The advantage of these on the slides, which is great, is that the next presenter and the presenter after that are always shown, whether you're doing it alphabetically or doing it randomly. That every member knows the next two people coming up. And the did we miss anyone is still there, because that can still happen and does happen. Vice President's report. Vice President comes up. There is the different stats, the regional stats that come up, which can or cannot or may be displayed or hidden based on how the chapter wants to do it. Then there's the chapter stats that the vice president would have inputted earlier for the last week, the last month, the year to date, and the 12 months. They can also be displayed in a table. And also the chapter goals can be set and the progress, and we can see how those chapter goals are going. If the chapter has a growth coordinator, then the growth coordinator could appear here, could upload a document. Not all chapters do, but that's an option. The membership committee report will show the open categories, either all the open categories or them randomly, and the pending applications as well for the chapter. Secretary Treasurer report. Secretary Treasurer's slide comes up. There's a script which the Secretary Treasurer would need copies of. The upcoming speakers are displayed, can go through that. Can also do the upcoming speakers with photos too. So that's up to the chapter and what slide the president wants to show. This way shows the dates, and the upcoming speakers with pictures does not show the dates. If the chapter has multiple speakers, then this slide would be selected. Feature speakers, so the larger speakers with going 5 minutes each. Or if there's just one speaker, then it just says feature speaker. And to go through the feature presenter, the president clicks start slideshow, and then the member has the option, the ability to click through the member's own slide. And a timer can be displayed or hidden as well, which could be handy or could be a distraction. The bio is here too, so somebody could read that bio. This is a very handy feature of BNI+ because it makes the old way of trying to get the presentation to somebody to put in a PowerPoint or to share or whatever. It simplifies the whole thing, makes it so much easier. And then if there's a speaker too, as there would be in some chapters, then that one would be listed here. Referrals and testimonials. Again, a script and a few ways that chapters can do it. Some have the I have slides. Some will have specific slide for when they are in person, where everybody stands and goes around the room. Some will do it. They select a member randomly. And again, they know when the next member is speaking. Or it can be done with timer or without timer. There's also select a member alphabetically. And then they go whatever letter starts with, of course, it just cycles right through the alphabet. Again, displaying who is speaking next. And there's also with a progress bar instead of a timer. And then a gong that will sound after when the time is up. Then for the visitors, there's a few options where they can go after the members, talking about what impressed them most about the meeting. They could have a timer, not necessarily. And visitors could also be selected at random. A lot of this depends on just how the chapter wants to do it, how the leadership team wants to do it. Referral reality check also is there. Not all chapters do it, so that slide could be hidden. And if your chapter doesn't do it and you're going to start it, this is where that goes. Then the Secretary Treasurer's report, where the Secretary Treasurer covers the renewals. The pending renewal slide would need to be updated, and that gets updated manually. And the Secretary Treasurer also talks about the dues. And in a chapter, if the apply QR code or the apply URL has been put in, there is a QR code that will appear so that the visitors can just scan Then there's the visitor recognition or thanking of the visitors. And they go off to the visitor orientation. And then when the visitors are at the orientation, they go with the visitor host and one of the members of the membership committee into the orientation. And then the announcements are done by usually the communications coordinator. There's a couple of ways these go. If there's chapter event, and my event's not appearing here, the whole list all of the events can be listed. Here's a good example. The region events that can be listed, which seems almost pointless to me. We've tended to hide that slide and we just go straight into specific events. And this way there's the full description, full information, and then the communications coordinator can go through that, and then the president just clicks through each of these. If the chapter is running a door prize, then that becomes an option too, with all the stats that were provided and so on. And then finally, the close meeting is where the closing quote is, and the visitors are brought back into the room. Some chapters bring them back into the room, whether that's the breakout room or the physical room, before the closing quote. Some do it after the closing quote. We've inserted a blank closing quote here just as that divider between the announcement and the quote, so that the closing quote itself can come across as a nice surprise and give the president a chance to do some wrap-up comments, because people know when the closing quote comes up, then the meeting's over. Then at the end, afterwards, there can be some random slides, how to join with the QR code. Could be another final way to encourage the visitors before they leave. The open categories can go through at random, and the upcoming speakers can also go through at random. So this is using the test mode of BNI+. Which gives a good overview and a great way for you and the leadership team to go through to see exactly what slides you want to have in your meeting and which ones you want to have hidden.